This is Isaac Morehouse. Welcome to the podcast where we discuss education, entrepreneurship, big ideas, how to put them into practice in the real world, and above all, how to live free. All right, this isn't even fair, but I'm going to do it. Cody Chipman asks on Facebook, what was your most awkward experience? Now, I know Cody has some inside knowledge, and he's asking this because he wants a particular story. Well, you know what? I'm going to give it to him. It's just time to get this out in the open. So, many years ago, when I used to work for a state representative in the Michigan House of Representatives, when I thought that politics was a viable means of creating social change, a belief that I no longer hold, but anyway, I was working for a representative, and he said, hey, Isaac, there are these students at the University of Michigan. They've got this, Liberty Club. One of them's really young. He just started it. And before he took over, the group had committed to run an event that's not libertarian at all. It's more of like reactionary conservative sort of thing. It's going to offend a lot of people, but it's gotten all this press, and it's like it's going to happen. And he's young and doesn't know what to do. So I told them, and this was what the event was, just the most awful event you can imagine. It was called Catch an Illegal Immigrant. It was supposed to be like like conservative groups do this as like an anti-immigration thing. Now I am, and have been, and back then I was as well, a big advocate of open borders. And I think it's inhumane, economically inefficient, and just sort of disgusting to treat people differently or restrict them because of where they live in terms of an imaginary government line. So anyway, he's like, they have this event, Catch an Illegal Immigrant, and the kid that was running the group wanted to cancel it. And this was my boss at the time speaking, the state representative, who loved media attention. He said, so I told them, no, don't cancel it. Run the event anyway, but just turn it into a libertarian event. This will be great. And he said, so I told them to call it Catch an Illegal Immigrant Day, and everyone's going to come, all these protesters, expecting it to be this horrible anti-immigration event. But instead, the twist will be that two American Indians will catch someone two people dressed like American Indians will catch somebody, or Native Americans will catch somebody dressed like Christopher Columbus. And it'll be like, haha, joke's on you. Pretty much everybody in this country is an illegal immigrant, because we all come from illegal immigrants. And there, isn't that a wonderful twist? And everyone will be enlightened. That was his idea. And he's like, so this kid's going to do it, but he's really nervous. Can you write a little spiel for him and then go there and be there for moral support? I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. He's like, no, you have to. And I was young and early in my job, and I was stupid enough to think that I actually did have to. And still am friends with this guy. So anyway, despite this, so I write up this wonderful little, explanation. After the game was over, it was supposed to be, here's these Native Americans who have caught Christopher Columbus. All of our ancestors were illegal immigrants. This country was built in this way. The idea that people have to ask for permission to cross borders and blah, 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 as long as they're peaceful, is absurd. And we should think about what that actually means, etc. I thought it was great, and it turned this horrible sounding event into something with kind of a libertarian message. So I go there, I give the speech to the guy who's running the event, and then I'm just like standing off to the side. Well, he goes to announce the beginning of the event, and there's just like local TV cameras, reporters everywhere, protesters everywhere, just like chanting like, hey, hey, ho, ho, racist bigots have got to go, and all this kind of stuff, because they're so offended by this event, the name and what they assumed it was going to be. And so he's like, okay, this is how the game works. There's an illegal immigrant, somebody that has a little tag that indicates they're an illegal immigrant wandering around campus, and whoever catches them and brings them back here, like, wins the game or something, some gimmicky thing. And there's all these reporters and stuff and everybody, and and he's like, okay, the game can begin. And then everyone's just standing there, and they're like, they're like asking him, who's playing the game? Who's going to play the game? Who's playing the game? And he looks terrified, and he points to me in the crowd. And all of his friends at his like student liberty group had all dispersed and run for the hills. And he points, and literally in slow motion, like the crowd parted, and he points at me. He's like, he will. All these cameras come around me, and they're like, oh, you're playing this racist game? Oh, that's so offensive. What are you doing? And I'm like, I don't know what am I supposed to do? So I just started walking. So I just like walked a circle around campus. And as I'm walking, all these people are running up, all these protesters, and yelling at me. And they run up and they put a pillowcase over my head that says fascist. And they're like, we bagged a fascist. We're playing bag of fascist. This is our own game. Bag of fascist. Woo. And the guy that's doing that, I'm like, hey, maybe you should wait till the end of the game. It's not really like, I'm not a fascist. In fact, I support open borders. And then he's like, oh, really? But like, this is quietly to me, all the cameras are around and like getting this and stuff. And again, there's like, 3 or 4 local news stations. I don't know, but in Ann Arbor, Michigan. So I like walk around the circle. I come to the end after they're all like calling me a fascist, putting a pillowcase over my head. And I'm just trying to like be as chill as I can. And this is just awful. Like, how do I get myself into this? And they get to the end and he's got these buddies dressed up with, Native American garb and somebody dressed up like Christopher Columbus. And they're like, we caught the illegal immigrants, Christopher Columbus. And then he unfolds a piece of paper, the little speech I gave him, and starts to read it with no microphone or bullhorn, really quavering and shaking. And no one can hear him over the protesters who completely didn't get the gimmick, which of course it's kind of it's a stretch. It's kind of a stupid attempt anyway. And they're all yelling, oh my God, it's so much worse than I thought. Look at the stereotypical way they've got these Native Americans dressed. And Christopher, this is so racist. And they just keep chanting more and more how racist everything is. And then one of the other kids with the group gets on camera and he like freaks out. And he's like, well, we need to be careful. There's a lot of things to consider with the debate over immigration. And kind of makes it sound like this is an anti-immigration event. Anyway, the whole thing finally ended. There were like articles in the student newspaper and the local news about this horrible racist event run by this racist group. And there are pictures of me and somewhere, I don't know if it ever aired, but somewhere there exists footage of me walking around the University of Michigan's campus with a pillowcase over my head that says fascist and a bunch of people, protesters, pointing at me and yelling and calling me a fascist and assuming that I supported some sort of anti-immigration event. It was the most confusing, horrible, embarrassing experience probably of my life. And I'm finally now talking about it. So Cody Chipman, I hope you got what you wanted out of this. It was painful for me to recall these memories. And just know, if you ever see footage anywhere of me with a pillowcase on my head that says fascist, it's not what it looks like. I don't know how many ways there are that it could look any worse than that. But trust me, that's not what it was all about. I guess thanks for giving me the chance to get it off my chest.